Welcome to 7 Tech. My name's Curtis. We're going to be doing something a little different today. You may be asking, what is that on my head? Well, it's a first-person camera mount, and I'm going to be doing how to build a PC first-person view in 2025. I'm going to try to think of everything that a beginner PC builder might need to know, questions they might ask, and have it all consolidated into this video. We got to build more on the budget side today, if you can call anything pertaining to PC parts in 2025 budget. But it's an MSI B650 motherboard, a PNY NVIDIA 4060. We got an AMD 7600 CPU, a couple Lian Li fans, a Lian Li O11 Vision compact computer case. And now let's dive into the first person view. And here we are, first person view activated. What you want to start with is your motherboard, of course, and everything that is going to go onto the motherboard. You got your CPU, your SSD, your RAM, need some thermal paste. I like to use an electric screwdriver, have a manual screwdriver. This is the LTT screwdriver, great screwdriver. This Fantic precision screwdriver, it's also electric. Now let's start with opening the motherboard and lay it on top of the box. First thing I like to do is install the CPU. Remove your retaining latch by pushing down, moving over, and lifting up. Lift up this. And now see these pins in here? These are super delicate, very small pins. Do not touch them. Do not drop anything in there. Be very careful. This is one of the few ways you can mess up your computer build. I'm going to lower that for now until I get the CPU out. Here we are, Ryzen 5 7600. Hold it by the side like this, and you'll see that there is a gold triangle here. That is going to line up with this triangle here. So let's lift this up. And very carefully drop your CPU, just like that. Lower this and push down. This takes a pretty good bit of force, more than you probably feel like it should. Lower it, this pops out. Now your CPU is installed. Now, if you have an air cooler, which this AMD CPU comes with one, then now's the time to install it. If you have an AIO liquid cooler, that will be installed later. This build does not have one, but I'll mention it when it comes time. These mounts here are not for this type of mount. You see these screw holes here line up with the screws there. So we've got to remove this mount mechanism so we can put in the stock AMD one. Just use our screwdriver here. Now these screws screw into a back plate. So once you take them all out, well, no, this one won't fall off. Sometimes these back plates will fall off, but this one's actually screwed in by the retaining mechanism for the CPU. But sometimes these back plates will fall off and you'll have to hold them on while you put your cooler on. These just lift off. And now put these up and keep them, because if you ever upgrade your cooler to an AIO, more than likely it's going to use these type of mounts. And if you don't have them, that will suck. Now I'm not going to use the pre-applied thermal paste just for the sake of demonstration. So I'm going to take a napkin and just some isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to clean it off. Anytime you need to clean thermal paste, alcohol is the best thing to use. Just keep rubbing until you get it all off. It's kind of some nasty stuff. Try not to push it into the fins. Now I've got it cleaned off pretty good. So the next step is apply the thermal paste. Now I like to do about the size of a little sweet pea. So just kind of a round little blob right on the middle of the die.
Now AMD CPUs are pretty much square, so this will work for those. But if you do have the newer Intel CPUs that are more rectangular shaped, you might want to do kind of a thick line down the middle of the CPU rather than this pea-shaped blob.
Now too much thermal paste is not the worst thing. It'll just get a little messy, but too little thermal paste is definitely bad. Once again, there's about the size to use. Might have been just a little too much. And now we mount the cooler. And if you look, these are your different fan headers. You got CPU fan 1, and you got pump fan, sys fan. So these 4 pins here, this is the one that this is going to plug into. This is called a PWM fan header, and it's going to go into CPU fan 1. So as you're mounting it, it can either go this way or this way. So kind of think of cable management as you do it, because you see if it's mounted there, you're gonna have a cable sticking up. If we turn it this way, it's not gonna reach. Is there another CPU fan header? I doubt it. There's not. So that kind of sucks. The orientation of this wire, sometimes you can do it where kind of like that, and it just meets up nice and you don't have a whole lot of wire sticking out. But unfortunately this one did not. So it's gonna have to go like this. Now when you sit it down on there, just do your best to line up the screw holes so you don't smear that thermal paste around. There we go, got the screw holes lined up. Do not use an electric screwdriver for this. Try and get them all started, kind of working in an X pattern. Once you have them all started, just keep going around and around. You don't want to tighten down one all the way and then do the other. You want to kind of tighten a little, and bring it down. You want to bring down the CPU cooler evenly. So little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. Just keep bringing it down slow. So 1, 2 turns, go across. 1, 2, go over. 1, 2, across. Over. 1, 2, across again. Just keep doing that. All right, that's it. Don't over tighten these, just turn it till they stop. That's it. That one's all the way. That one, and this one. All right, they're all tight. We'll plug in our fan header. And again, with the cable management, let's just try and maybe tuck it in like that, just to make it look neat. Next thing we want to do is install our RAM. Now normally these come in kits of 2 sticks or 4 sticks. I didn't pick out this build. Somebody reached out to me and already had the parts and wanted me to build it. So I'm not really sure why he didn't get a kit of memory and why he got single sticks. But they're both the same. It's nice to get kits because I think they're kind of like paired. I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's better to get a kit of memory rather than single sticks. These are DDR5, 6000 mega transfer CL36. This is pretty nice. Some motherboards don't have this. Let's see if I can get it on camera. But you can see right here, it tells you which ones to populate first, and it's going to be DIMM A2 and B2. So you pop these open. Now some motherboards only one side opens, and they're made to where they can go in with just that one side. You want to line up this notch with the little silver there. Don't get it the wrong way. It's very close, but if you look closely, you'll see that they don't quite line up. They only go one certain way. Make sure it's sliding in this slot here. Same thing here. And then push down evenly on both sides till you hear both click in. Push down on both sides, you'll hear 2 clicks. 2 clicks. There you go. And you can check, just make sure these retaining clips are all the way up. They are. Now your RAM is installed. Next thing is going to be your SSD. You always want to populate the top one first because that's going to be the one that is directly connected to the CPU, and the others, this one will be going through the chipset to talk to the CPU. Whereas this one has a direct connection, it's going to be faster. So it's good to always have your boot drive, your boot OS Windows on the top populated SSD. Lift this up. This is your heat sink. It helps dissipate the heat of the SSD. On the back side, you'll see it has a thermal pad with plastic on it. You want to peel this plastic off because that will keep you from transferring heat as well. Don't leave that plastic on there. Set this down for a minute. Let's grab the SSD. Now this is keyed as well. There's a key here. I don't know if you can see it very well. You have this little retaining clip here. Some motherboards will have these nice little kind of retainers. Other ones will just have screws that you have to put in. So each one's different. Also on motherboards that do not have these kind of nice little retainers here, and you have to put in your own screw, there will be a little standoff that goes into the motherboard, and then the SSD goes in, and then the screw goes into the standoff. I have seen some people, like here's one where a standoff would go. I have seen some people not put the standoff and they screw the SSD directly in like that, and it'll be bent. So just be aware of that. Now to install this, you want to put it in at an angle. It goes in and then you push it down. Make sure your key is lined up. Push it in. You see it sits there up at an angle. Now push it down. There you go. Turn your clip. That's it. It's in. Take your heat sink. Put it back on top. Install your screw. Now these don't have to be super tight. Just a good little snug turn. Now we have our CPU cooler installed, our RAM, and our SSD. Two things I want to mention before we move on is this CPU socket cover. Do not throw it away. Keep it. If you ever have to RMA your motherboard, they're usually going to want you to send it with this back on to protect the pins. Or if you ever want to sell your motherboard because you upgraded, it's good to put that on there to protect them. And secondly, I said at the beginning we'd need this screw for the NVMe SSD. We did not. There was one already installed on the motherboard. Next step is to grab the graphics card. And if you know anything about PC building, you might be like, what? Install the graphics card already? But we're going to do a test boot outside of the case because you don't want to install everything in the case, do all your cable management, and get it nice and looking pretty, and then you boot it up and something doesn't work and you have to tear it apart. So we're going to throw the graphics card in, hook up the power supply to it, and do a test boot on the bench. Now here's the graphics card, our NVIDIA 4060. Make sure you remove this protective cover from the PCI connector. And now on your PCI slot, you have this little clip. You want to push it back, open it up, and then you're just going to line up again your key slot here with that right there. Oh, so these are hitting the motherboard box. So just scoot your motherboard off just a little bit so they can hang over. See here, like that. And now you want to just push straight down and you'll hear the click of the lock clicking up, similar to the memory. Now we're going to grab our power supply. Here we are, MSI 650 watt fully modular power supply. We can just sit it here. Open up our bag with all our cables in it. Got our AC power cord. Now we're looking for our 24-pin motherboard connector. That's this here. It's going to connect to the motherboard. Here's our PCIe power, which is what this is, 8-pin PCIe. Here's another PCIe power pin if you had a more powerful graphics card that needed 2 connectors, so we're not going to need that. Here is the CPU power, which is up here. We're going to need 2 of these. There's 1, 2. Some more SATA connectors and old school Molex. We won't need those. Now with this particular power supply, the plug with the writing on it is the motherboard side or device side, and the side with no writing goes to the power supply. And they actually have them to where you can't plug them in anyway because the clip is so big and you just got a small opening for that. So let's plug in our CPU power. Where to plug it on the power supply, you can see this is ATX 24-pin. These can be your CPU or PCI power, and these are your SATA and Molex power. To orient these, you can see the clip on the top, and you can see the little catch right here for the clip. You just push those down until you hear the click. Same with the other one. Now let's grab our PCI power to power our graphics card, plug it to the power supply. And now with these can be a little tricky, or I shouldn't say tricky, but a little aggravating. If you look, this has little ears that are sticking out, and they kind of rest, you can see, on the connector. You just kind of got to hold it together while you do it. And there, I can't hit it with my fingernail, but the catch for the clip is down there. And click it in. And then last is our ATX motherboard 24 pin. And here's the clip for that. This one's being a little tough. All right, clicked. Now take our AC power. Make sure your power supply is off. Plug it in. And plug up our HDMI cable. And now to boot up a motherboard when you don't have a button, because it's not in the case, is you want to look for your front panel headers. And here you can see JFP1. That's going to be, I'm not sure what the J is for, but front panel 1. And sometimes it'll have a legend right above the connector to tell you what each pin is. But this one is set off just a little bit over here. So you can see it's labeled JFP1. Hopefully you can see that on camera. And you can see you have 4 pins on the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have power LED, positive and negative, and power switch, positive and negative. So what you want to do is just jump the power switch pins, positive and negative, with something metallic like the screwdriver, and it'll turn on. Well, it'll turn on if you turn on your power supply. Now, jump the pins, and there it goes. And all we want to look for is make sure that the computer post, which means power on self-test. And on first boot, don't get worried, it may take a little bit. It's training the memory. There we go, it says new CPU installed. So here we go at the BIOS screen. You can see we detected our CPU, AMD Ryzen 7600. You can see that our memory is being detected, the full 32 gigs. That's what 32,000 megabytes is. You can see your temperatures for your CPU and your motherboard. CPU sitting at 40 degrees right now, which is good. I would say if you see something maybe over 50 degrees sitting at idle in the BIOS, that's kind of getting high. Maybe you need to check your thermal paste or check your CPU mount, make sure you got all the screws tight. Other than that, everything looks good, and we can switch off the power supply. Next step is to undo some of the things we just did. Power supply is off, I'm going to unplug it. We're going to unplug all of our power supply cables from our devices. And when you do that, you just want to push these clips and pull up. You might need to wiggle it a little bit as you do. Same thing with this one. Push the clip in, wiggle it, and pull up. And this one's pretty tight. Now let's set our power supply aside. We won't need that for a little while. Unplug the HDMI from our graphics card. And to remove the graphics card, you need to push down on this clip and pull up on the graphics card. Actually, when you push down, it will pop up the graphics card a little bit. So push down on the clip and pull up on the graphics card, and it'll come right out. I missed a peel right here. Let's go ahead and get that off so I don't forget. And now it's time to start getting things into the case. I want to start off by removing the side panel. And now these side panels are tempered glass. You want to keep them away from tile floor, granite countertops, which is why I have this mat here that I build on. Just be really careful, because they touch a hard surface like granite or tile, they will shatter. Next step, take off this top panel. I'll turn it around and remove the side panel. And it just pops off, no screws holding it. Next, let's lay it on its side. Next, we want to grab the motherboard, and to pick it up, you can pick it up by the CPU cooler. It's perfectly fine. And we want to drop it into the motherboard, but before we do that, we want to make sure that all the standoffs are in the correct position. For a standard ATX motherboard, which is what this one is, there should be a total of 9 standoffs. If you have MATX, there'll be a different set of standoffs, or if you have ITX motherboard, it'll only be using these 4 standoffs. Also, there's typically one standoff, and it's usually this one, that is a little higher than all the others. It'll have kind of a raised area to help line up with the motherboard. So when you drop it in, you want to get this rear IO into this hole here. So kind of go in at an angle, lining up that first, and then bring it down. And there it is. And it's hard to see, but this standoff is actually kind of in the motherboard. The raised portion has came into the screw hole. Unlike the others, here you can still see the motherboard, hopefully anyway. Now that the motherboard's in the case, time to screw it down. Your motherboard screws typically come with the case, and this case comes with this nice little container for all your little extras. And here are all the screws. Now before I move on, I wanted to go over a few of the standard screws you may encounter while building a PC. There are a lot of others that are proprietary to, say, like AIO cooler or cases and different things, different motherboards, but these are a few of the standard ones. Here you got your standard standoff. It typically screws into the case, and then that gives you somewhere to screw a screw into, which is what we're doing with our motherboard. These screws here, they're a little bit of a coarse thread, and they have a Phillips head, but also they have a hex head. These are typically used to screw into the power supply into the case. Then you have these very coarse screws like this. They're typically for installing fans, and they're designed to cut into the plastic. The teeth are designed to cut into the plastic of the fan. And then you have your fine threaded motherboard screws. These are what usually go into the standoffs. And they have kind of like a little hat shape to the head. So we're going to take these here with the hat shape and start screwing our motherboard in. Now you don't need to tighten these down super tight, just a good snug little turn, and that's it. Now let's stand the case up and get ready to install the power supply. Now for every case, where the power supply goes is going to be different, but you're typically going to see a big square cutout like this for it. Some cases, it'll be kind of a split like this, power supply on one side, motherboard and all the other devices on the right side, or on the other side. Some cases will have like a power supply basement where the power supply will be down here and the rest of the computer will be above it. It all just depends, but it will always be a square cutout like that. Now on some cases, it's very hard to plug in the cables after you have the power supply installed. So it's good to go ahead and plug in all the cables that you think you'll need before you move on. Which reminds me, we need one SATA power cable to power our fans. Okay, I've got the SATA power cable. Plug that in. Now with this case, it has a little door you move out of the way. Now you want to make sure to have your power supply fan facing out so it can suck fresh air. You don't want to have it like this where it's suffocating. You're going to drop it in and it's just going to slide straight back. Now we're going to grab those power supply screws, and again they're the slightly coarser thread and have the little hex head on them. And that's it for now. We'll just leave these cables hanging out the back. Next step is going to be installing our fans. Now the owner of this PC has 6 Lian Li RGB fans. We're going to do 3 here and 3 on the bottom. They'll be intake, both of them blowing cold air up onto the GPU. This will be blowing cold air into the rest of the case. And he has 2 fans to go on the back that will be exhausting. So we're going to lay this down. We're going to pull out this filter and grab the fans. Now I've got all the fans out of the packaging. Let me lift up the case to explain something. On a, let's call it regular fan, they will blow air out the backside where these motor supports are. But because these are going on the bottom and blowing in, we don't want to look at this ugly backside of it and have it blowing in. So these are actually sold as reverse fans. If you look at the box here for them, it says reverse blade. So be mindful of that, if depending on how you want your fans oriented. So if you had say you had exhaust up at the top of the case, then you'd want them like that and blowing through. Same thing with the back of the case, a standard fan, that would work. So you see the pretty side and it's blowing out the back. Now these Lian Li fans are a little bit unique in that they don't have a wire going to every fan, and they click in together and connect with these pins here. They drop in like that and slide over. Some fans will have 2 wires going to it, one to power the fan and one to control the lighting. Don't forget your pills. And on the fan that is on the end, where no more will be connecting to it, with these Lian Li fans, you can turn this and pull this little connector out for a slightly cleaner look. Now these Lian Li fans had little rubber blanks to cover up the screw holes. So I'll pop those out on each corner. If you wanted to go overboard with it, you could pop them all out and put a screw in every corner of every fan. But because they connect together like this, you really only need one in each corner. So now we're going to tilt the case back over. And before we install the fans, we have to install the one single wire that powers these fans. And it looks like this thing here. And what it does, it slides in and clicks over. And let's see how we're going to have the fans installed. They'll be like that. So the wire will be going back to the back of the motherboard. You can pop this cover off right here and flip this cable over and put the cover back on if you need the cable to come out that way. But this is already in the position we want it, so it's good to go. Next step is remove these screws here. And the reason you have to do that is because if you look, if you drop the fans in, you can see that you can't get to the screw holes here. There's actually a fan tray in this case that you pull out and mount the fans onto. Every case is different. Some may not have these fan trays. Some you may just have to mount it through like that while it's attached to the motherboard. But this one has the tray. Don't get mixed up. Pay attention to how it goes in so you mount your fans correctly. Now drop it back in the case. You can see it has these little ears on it. You have to go in these slots here and put the screws back in. Bottom fans are in. The next set of fans are going to go here. And it is a fan tray as well. There's one thumb screw here. Pull that out and it lifts up and out. Now that the fans are screwed to the fan mount, drop it back into the case. In this case, the bottom goes in first and drop the front down. Get our little thumb screw that holds it in. Stand the case back up. Just make sure it looks good. Fans are installed. Next step is the rear fans. There's nothing special about them. They're just some blacked out fans. Now these, when you're putting them in, these are not reverse fans, so they will actually be blowing through the grating here. When you put them in, think about your cable management. So we're probably going to want to go coming out the bottom here. Now for the cable management with this one, I'm just going to make it come out the top here. So we can go out this hole and we'll come back in over here and plug to this system fan number 1 header. Now all the fans are installed. It's time to move on to cable management. But before I do, there's one thing I want to touch on that this PC build does not have, but if you're following along, maybe yours does. So I want to show how to do that. And that is install a SATA hard drive or SATA SSD. Now the connectors are typically down on the bottom of the motherboard, bottom right here. If you look in the connector here, you can see that it has kind of an L shape to it. And you're gonna have to match that up with the L shape on this connector. So it goes in and just clicks. Then you're gonna wanna route that to the back where SSD will be. Let's spin the case around. Now every case is going to be different with where it mounts its 2.5-inch drives or its bigger 3.5-inch drives. This case has two 3.5-inch drive cages down here that you can put your hard drives in. And for the 2.5-inch, that's what these mounts are here. And in that little case that came with all the screws and stuff, it has these little rubber grommets. And what they do is they go in and they slide over, and then you have screw holes on your SSD that will match up with that rubber grommet. So it'll be mounted to the door like this, and then you're just going to route that cable that went to the motherboard to it. Then the other cable will be your SATA power connector that's going to the power supply, and it has the same L shape. Just make sure you match that up with the L shape on the hard drive. Now the first part of cable management, I would suggest doing all your front panel connectors. Just take your power supply cables, kind of get them out of the way. This is going to be your USB 3.0 connector. It's going to go right here. So you just kind of have to keep moving your case back and forth as you work. If you look at this connector, you can see it has a little key on the top, right there. And that's going to line up with the little notch on the connector. And make sure you go into this connector very straight as you can, because those pins are very small and can bend easily. Next we have the USB-C connector, and that's going to go right here. And this one is also keyed. It's kind of hard to tell, but it is slightly different on one side. So if it doesn't want to go one way, flip it over and try the other. Next thing we have is our front panel audio. And the front panel audio connector is typically over on the bottom left of the board. That's what these capacitors are here for. That's for audio filtering, so you don't get electrical noise in your sound. And you can't see it on camera, but it's going to be this connector here, and down below it says AUD1 for audio 1. Now one thing I'm going to do is take out these hard drive cages so we have more room for cable management. They just have these two thumb screws. They lift up and pull out. And now you see we have room to route our front panel audio right to the connector. And if you see with this connector, there is one spot where there's not a hole, and that's going to line up. Same thing with the connector here. On the motherboard, there's a spot where there is no pin. So just make sure you line that up. And those just push on. There's no click or anything. Just make sure they're in all the way. And last is going to be our front panel button for the power and reset switch. And that goes on the bottom right of the motherboard. It's going to be over here. That's what we jumped with the screwdriver to turn it on when we tested it. And now some cases, the front panel button connectors will not be a single plug like this. They'll be individual, like 2 wires for one, 2 wires for another, and you'll have to make sure you get them in the right place. And again, you would just look at that legend that I showed when we were testing the motherboard to begin with. That legend shows where everything will go. So instead of having one plug that says front panel, you'll have one that says power switch, power LED, reset switch, and so on. And you want to just take that power switch and match it with the legend on the motherboard to see where it goes. This one, it has one spot that does not have a hole for a pin. Match that up with the spot where the pin's missing on the motherboard. And that does it for the front panel connectors. Now, I know I said this would be a first-person view on how to build a PC, but as far as the cable management aspect goes, I think that will be better shown from this view and just do it in a sped-up montage. I've already showed when we did the initial testing out of the case where all of the power supply connectors went. It's just a matter of routing them in a nice, neat way to where they go in the case. So here goes the cable management. Now I've got a lot of the cable management done. The only thing that I haven't done is the GPU PCIe power cable and the SATA power to power the fans. So next step is the fans. Now these Lian Li fans are a bit of a special use case here, so I'm not going to go into the details of how to install this. But short story is, it has a USB dongle that allows for wireless control of the RGB lighting. But on most fans you'll encounter, they'll have a wire for powering the fan and a wire for controlling the RGB. The wire for powering the fan will be a 4-pin or 3-pin PWM connector, and regardless if it's 3 or 4-pin, it'll plug to the same spot on the motherboard. The RGB plug will typically be a 4-pin ARGB plug that will plug to your motherboard RGB headers, or it will be a proprietary RGB plug that will typically come with an also proprietary hub to control it with. RGB is a bit of a mess, but the fan power is standardized 3 or 4-pin PWM. Now this USB dongle has 2 connectors. One is an internal USB header, which those are almost always at the bottom of the board. And this one you can actually see, they say USB on them. So I'll run that there. Again, this connector has 1 pin that's missing or not there. So you want to make sure you plug it in the correct way on the motherboard as well. Now the other connector is a PWM fan connector. So I'm going to plug up this so the owner of this PC has the option to use the motherboard to control the fan speed, or he can use the Lian Li software to control the fan speed. And there should be a fan header down here at the bottom, and they are right there. Now, for other builds that don't have this Lian Li wireless solution, you might have a hub that you would mount somewhere back here that all your fans would plug to. Or if you don't have a hub, you would plug all your fans to the actual headers on the motherboard. Some motherboards may have just 3 or 4 headers. Some more expensive motherboards may have 6 or 7 fan headers. So when you're building your PC, take into account how many fans you have, how you're going to plug them up, and if you are going to plug them up to the motherboard, make sure your motherboard has the headers that you need, the number of headers that you need. A lot of more expensive fans will come with an actual hub to plug all your fans to, so you don't have to worry about plugging it to the motherboard and if it has enough headers. Now the last thing to do as far as devices go is to install the graphics card. Now to install the graphics card, we need to remove these PCI slot covers. And if you're not sure which one to remove, you can kind of grab your graphics card and just line it up with the slot, and you can see that it's these 2 here. So it's not the top 2, it's the next 2 down. Now, take your graphics card, make sure your clip is open, push all the way down on it. These here need to go kind of in between the motherboard and the case here, in that little bitty slot. And then you're also lining up your PCIe connectors. There we go. And line up your slot back here and push down till you hear the click. Now install the thumb screws. And before I tighten them all the way down, I like to push the graphics card up just to make sure it's all the way up as far as it can go, especially with bigger, heavy graphics cards that tend to sag. And now your graphics card's installed. Let's take our last power cable to connect, and that's the graphics card PCIe power. Plug it in. Click. Take a zip tie and zip tie this little pigtail down, and that's installed. I'll get some cutters in a minute. Now the next thing are these last fans here. These are going to be the exhaust fans. So this top one, I'm going to route through this hole right here. We got pump fan and sys fan. So want to make sure I plug it to system fan. I'm just going to tuck that back in the hole. This one, I think we're going to try, let's see if we ran it up here. We could run it up to this one or to this one. There's also a fan connector down here I could run it to down. I think we might try that tuck it in through here, the back of the graphics card. That doesn't look too bad. And now connect it down here to the fan header underneath. It's hard to see, but it's down there. And that's connected. And now the little pigtail for this, I'm gonna shove underneath the motherboard and pull it out the back just to hide it. Now I'll cut this tie wrap, tuck this cable back under here. Big thing with it is you want to make sure that it's not getting into your fans. So when you pull it, just make sure it's sitting in a good spot. It's not going to hit the fans, and that's good. You can install the fan filter, put the back panel on. Got to make sure this door is shut. There we go. Put the top on. Now the side panel, and that's done. Finished build. Now that the PC is built and fully assembled, there's one thing we need to do before we move on to the Windows install step, and that's get our RAM running at the advertised speed that the kit was sold as. This particular kit in this system was sold as 6,000 megahertz kit, so you can see here our DDR speed is running at 4,800 megahertz. So we need to go and activate something called XMP to get our 6,000 megahertz speed. Every BIOS will be different, but most of them I've seen on modern systems will have an advanced mode. So click on advanced mode, and probably it's usually under overclock settings, and here it is, XMP. And this one has two profiles. So profile 1, you can see is 6,000 mega transfers. And if you go to profile 2, you can see it's a 5,600 megahertz. So we're going to do profile 1, and then you just want to go back and settings, save changes, and reboot. And now you have your RAM running at your full speed. Well, there you go. How to build a PC first person view 2025. Hopefully most of the shots were good enough to see what was going on. If some of them weren't, I apologize. If you're following along and you run into something that wasn't covered in the video, or it's hard to see and you have a question, feel free to leave a comment and I can reach out to you and help you out. One last thing to do, let's power it on and see the lights. I want to thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful or enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Also, if you live near the Alabama-Mississippi state line down on the Gulf Coast and you have a PC that is in need of repair or one you'd like me to build, I offer my services for free in exchange for recording them to make YouTube content. You can reach out to me. My contact info is down in the description. My name is Curtis. Thanks for watching 7 Tech.